Good morning. And it really is a good morning in New York City. And I am feeling pretty wonderful absorbing the news that, hey, I'm going to be around for a while. And I can probably do more than merely bearing witness, though bearing witness is a pretty good thing to do. And going beyond bearing witness and getting action accomplished is even better. I saw a wonderful play last night in Brooklyn. It only runs through Sunday of this week. It was about Jan Karski, a famous Polish man who bore witness about the Holocaust. He lived it. He lived it so that he could repeat what he saw to convince world leaders that the extermination of the Jewish people was happening in Poland. And he did. He did his part. The fact that the Allies were too late, it wasn't because Jan Karski wasn't there and didn't tell them the truth. He had a photographic memory, and he said what he saw. He said it, and he felt it, and he made them feel it too. Sure, we entered World War II, and we saved the day, but we could have saved so many more lives if we had acted sooner. Just like in Ukraine, we're saving the day, all of us. But this is a global effort, and it should be a global effort to curtail what Putin is doing in Ukraine. There's only one historian in the United States who speaks about the Ukrainian state and the founding of Russia, which really didn't take place until 1580 with Ivan the Terrible. And then it's been one exploit of people after another. It's got to stop because it's affecting us on a global level, just like World War II did. Wiped out 6 million Jews, wiped out the gypsies, wiped out a lot of homosexuals, wiped out the Armenians, did a lot of damage. 22 million Russians died. For what? Because of one man's obsession with world power? When do we stop fighting men in suits? That's what I'd like to know. Where does it end? Where does it end that we act pragmatically to save our planet? Where does it end that we act pragmatically to save our democracy? In Arizona, they want to curtail citizen ballots. They want to be able to override what a citizen writes for a ballot measure, limit the ballot measures to one, and then rewrite what people say. As it is in Arizona, it costs them $10 million to pass a ballot measure to begin with, because the GOP actively goes against it. I guess when they passed a minimum wage in Arizona, that was too much for the GOP. They've decided they got to put their foot down. South Dakota is doing the same, trying to limit citizen ballots, and so is Arkansas. And why? That is the people's mechanism to have their voices heard over the state legislators. We have the right, and we should not let anyone take it away from us. This is the midterms, and this will determine what happens, unfortunately, probably, for the next 10 years. Do you want to be under the thumb of someone who doesn't care about you and your rights? I wouldn't. I worry about the folks in Florida, those poor people displaced by Hurricane Ian. Where do they vote? Somebody going to bus them to the old polling sites that don't exist anymore? Are there going to be new polling sites for them to go to so they can vote? And if they're smart, they ought to vote for Charlie Crist. Don't vote for DeSantis. It looks like he may have overstepped the line this time. He may have committed fraud in gerrymandering the district that represents African Americans out of existence. He might have gone a step too far by busing migrants up to New York City. And Abbott may have gone a step too far also by going against his state constitution to bus migrants up to Martha's Vineyard. It's not a joke. It's not a joke to the poor people who have been displaced, and it's not a joke to those of us who are paying not only to support probably Florida and Texas, but now to house and feed and make sure people are well taken care of. It's not a joke. People aren't cattle. People are human, and they deserve to be treated as humans with dignity, not someone that you can transport like lettuce over state lines. Common decency. What has happened to it? These men in suits know no bounds. They think they're above the law. Well, I'm waiting for equal justice, and I'm waiting for the law to catch up with them. And I think finally it's going to happen. And then maybe, just maybe, with the right government and Congress in place, we can get federal voting laws. We can get reproductive rights. And perhaps we'll actually change the NLRB so a lot of that clean slate for workers will really come into fruition, along with a change of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. I'd like to see that, because I don't think corporations should decide who sees my data and who controls it. Nor do I think that they should be in charge of my children's data or teenage data either. In Great Britain, the coroner decided that social media was responsible for the suicide of a young teenager. This is serious, folks. There are a lot of things to concern us, and one thing that shouldn't be is Putin's war of aggression. We don't need any more despots in our world. We got enough problems. They're looking at East Antarctica. It's a place nobody looked at except with the last dissolution of ice flows. Their probes went far into East Antarctica and are now looking at another glacier. It's already losing 7 billion tons of ice a year, but they're discovering that if the underpinnings of that ice melt, this has the potential to rise sea levels 1.5 meters. But it's just not the sea level rises now that we have to worry about. When the planet warms, what happens? We get bigger and deadlier hurricanes. We get flooding. Do we want to keep repeating what we're seeing in Florida with Ian, or what we saw in Pakistan recently? Do we want the droughts? Israel is now going into desalinization and helping countries near them. They're giving water to Jordan. They give water to the Palestinians, to Gaza. And they're now going to be pumping water from the Mediterranean into the Sea of Galilee. So we're in dire straits. The whole world should be stopping Putin. We still got a pestilence with the pandemic. People are still getting sick. Our climate is still warming, and thanks to Putin, people are going back to using coal. We don't need coal and greater emissions. And the fossil fuel companies are absolutely not plugging their leaks and being more efficient so that they could reduce methane and carbon emissions. It would save the money, but hey, the money comes so easy to them. What is it, $5 billion a day? And that's not counting all the subsidies. And who's paying for the subsidies? We are. All the citizens who pay taxes on this planet. We're paying for subsidies on a global level. And here in America, we're paying trillions. So there's a lot to think about. But one thing we should do is remember this. We should all be like Jan Karski, and we should all speak truth to higher powers because we're all human and we want to save each other. Don't be afraid. I wasn't when I approached Nancy Pelosi with my book, Shining a Light on the Mueller Report. I felt it was important. I really wanted to see Donald Trump impeached. If the law was in place, Mueller could have gone after Trump in a federal court. Instead, he had to rely on impeachment. So there's a lot to think about in our world. One is, how do we act? How do we bear witness? And how do we care for each other? Whether we're the same or different, we're all human. We all deserve life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I don't want to be fighting men in suits forever. I want to see justice, equal justice for everyone. So, God bless you, everyone. See you next week. You can bet on it.